The unexpected journey home. The day had stretched endlessly, one of those exhausting marathons where everything feels like an uphill battle. As darkness settled outside, the building grew eerily quiet, except for the steady buzz of overhead lights and distant footsteps echoing down empty corridors. I was packing up my things, feeling worn thin, when a voice broke through my tired thoughts. "Sarah, are you heading out?" Looking up, I saw Marcus, the executive director's son. He had this natural warmth about him, the kind that immediately puts people at ease. I hesitated, suddenly self-conscious about how late I'd stayed, then nodded. Yes, I was about to call for a ride. His expression brightened. "Don't bother with that. I'm going your way anyway. Let me drive you." Something about his tone, both relaxed and sincere, dissolved my uncertainty. I'd always noticed him around the workplace, someone who carried himself with quiet confidence, never pushy but somehow magnetic. Minutes later, we walked into the cool evening where a light rain had begun falling, creating a glassy sheen across the pavement. Raindrops kissed my cheeks as we approached his vehicle, and I caught the pleasant scent of leather mixed with subtle cologne as we climbed inside. The conversation began simply enough: work matters, city traffic, the weather pattern. But as we merged onto the main highway, something shifted. His voice took on a softer quality, revealing genuine interest in my world beyond office hours. He asked about my background, what I did for enjoyment, how I'd been managing everything recently. I found myself opening up in ways I hadn't in months, sharing stories that felt almost too personal for a casual drive home. Somewhere along the route, I noticed he wasn't merely being polite, he was truly engaged, the kind of attention you recognize when someone's gaze connects with yours in a way that makes you feel genuinely understood. It was subtle, yet it created this unexpected warmth spreading through my chest. I caught myself staring out the window, watching rain transform the city lights into a watercolor painting of amber and sapphire, thinking how remarkable it was that such a simple act, a ride home, could feel so profoundly intimate. As we approached my neighborhood, the atmosphere inside the car had transformed. The friendly ease had evolved into something unspoken, yet mutually recognized, something delicate and new. I couldn't predict what might unfold, but in that moment I understood I was willing to explore it. We stopped along my street as the rainfall softened to a gentle mist. I turned to express my gratitude, and our hands accidentally touched for just an instant, creating a spark that was simultaneously warm and electric, making me inhale sharply. He smiled with quiet knowing, an unspoken understanding flowing between us. Though brief, almost playful, the sensation lingered far beyond its actual duration. Stepping from the car and watching him drive into the night, I felt this strange cocktail of excitement and wonder bubbling inside. What had transpired? Was it nothing, or potentially something significant? I couldn't say for certain, but that drive stayed with me, along with thoughts of him and how unexpectedly vibrant I'd felt during those fleeting moments. That's when it struck me. Sometimes the most remarkable experiences hide within the most mundane circumstances. The following morning arrived with that drive still occupying my thoughts. Even routine tasks like preparing coffee felt different, as though the atmosphere itself had become charged, like the world had subtly transformed overnight. I kept replaying Marcus's expressions, how he'd truly listened, that momentary contact of our hands. It felt both exhilarating and strangely reassuring. At the office, surface appearances remained normal. The workplace hummed with typical energy, phones chiming, keyboards clicking, colleagues rushing between meetings. But I found myself observing Marcus through a different lens. He arrived with his characteristic ease, yet now I noticed smaller details, how his eyes brightened when he laughed, the taut-fee tilt of his head when something genuinely interested him. During lunch hour, I settled into the small bistro across the plaza, half expecting, half hoping he might appear. When he did, sliding into the chair opposite me with casual purpose, it felt somehow inevitable, as though the previous evening hadn't been merely a passing moment. "You seemed distracted earlier," he observed with a gentle smile.
"Perhaps I was," I acknowledged, stirring my beverage slowly. "I have had quite a bit occupying my mind." He nodded, and there existed this quiet recognition between us that required no additional words. After that, conversation flowed naturally, more personal than before, yet still respectful and comfortable. He didn't probe or pressure. He simply revealed pieces of himself in ways that made me feel safe sharing my own truths. By meal's end, I realized I'd been laughing more genuinely than I had in ages. That evening, walking toward my vehicle, I experienced this peculiar sense of expectation. I wasn't certain why, or even if I wanted to encounter him outside professional settings. Yet something undeniable pulled at me. As if responding to my unspoken thoughts, his car appeared beside mine at the curb. "Heading home?" he asked, as though it were the most natural question in the world. I hesitated, torn between solitude and curiosity about where this connection might lead. "Yes, I suppose so," I finally answered, accepting his offer. Rain had returned, drumming softly against the windshield. City illumination stretched into golden ribbons as we traveled. Initially, neither of us spoke much, but the silence felt different now. Not empty, but comfortable, like a shared secret. I glanced at him, observing the calm concentration in his features, how his hands rested lightly on the steering wheel. There was an ease in his presence, a quiet respect that made my chest tighten unexpectedly. We reached a tranquil stretch of road, lined with trees whose leaves glistened with fresh raindrops. Without planning it, I asked, "Do you ever sense that something unexpected can alter everything?" He looked at me thoughtfully. "Constantly. Sometimes it's a minor thing. Sometimes it's a person." Those words suspended between us, soft yet weighted with significance. I realized this transcended simple attraction or playful interest. It was something deeper, something awakening my awareness of my own heart in ways I hadn't experienced in years. When we arrived outside my home, I felt reluctant to end the journey. We lingered inside the car for several moments, both understanding that something fundamental had shifted between us. Then, as I stepped out, I sensed this subtle, nearly electric connection that neither of us attempted to define just yet. That night, lying awake, I reflected on him, the drive, the rain, how a simple gesture had unfolded into something unexpected and profoundly moving. I couldn't predict what would follow, but for the first time in ages, I felt a sense of possibility I hadn't known in years. The subsequent days brought this unusual blend of anticipation and normality. At work, everything appeared unchanged, yet everything felt transformed. Encountering Marcus in the office sparked a flutter I hadn't anticipated. Nothing overt or dramatic, just subtle like a breeze stirring the hair at your neck, impossible to ignore. We discovered small ways to connect throughout each day. A shared moment of humor during meetings, quiet conversations near the break room, occasional messages exchanged over lunch. Nothing explicitly romantic, yet each interaction carried warmth extending beyond ordinary workplace boundaries. I began noticing how genuinely he listened, not the perfunctory kind of listening, but the type that makes you feel your words truly matter. One Friday evening, as twilight deepened to indigo and gentle drizzle fell, I prepared to leave. Marcus appeared at my doorway, as if perfectly timed, his expression relaxed yet attentive. "Mind if I walk you to your car?" he asked, as though it were the most natural question in the world. I hesitated, torn between solitude and curiosity about where this connection might lead. "Yes, I suppose so," I finally answered, accepting his offer. Rain had returned, softly muting city sounds. We walked side by side, neither of us speaking initially, simply letting our synchronized steps fill the silence. An ease had developed between us now, a sense of trust that had grown from those first shared journeys and quietly strengthened with each smile, each glance, each laugh.
At my vehicle, we paused. He looked at me, truly looked, and for the first time, the barrier of professional roles seemed to dissolve. I felt gentle courage rising within me, as though the world had momentarily contracted to just the two of us, and nothing else mattered. Do you ever think about how unexpected moments can shift everything? He asked softly, echoing my earlier question. Yes, I admitted, and sometimes they feel destined to happen. He smiled, a slow, knowing expression that quickened my heartbeat. I think I understand exactly what you mean. The drive home that evening was quiet, yet charged. Both of us aware of the subtle tension building for weeks. We communicated through small, deliberate gestures, light touches on the arm, shared laughter, glances lingering slightly longer than necessary. It was gradual, tender, respectful, an emotional intimacy neither of us had forced, but that had grown naturally from understanding, curiosity, and mutual regard. When he stopped outside my house, the connection between us felt undeniable, yet still unspoken. He didn't rush or attempt to define it. He simply looked at me with warmth and care, as though recognizing the depth of what had quietly developed between us. "Thank you," I said softly, those simple words carrying far more than their surface meaning. "For what?" he asked, though I knew he understood perfectly. "For this. For being genuine. For making me feel seen." He nodded, his expression gentle, almost reverent. "I could say the same about you." As I stepped from the car, the rain had ceased, leaving calm quiet over the neighborhood. I watched him depart, feeling this mixture of longing and gratitude. The journey had evolved into more than transportation. It had become a mirror, reflecting something I hadn't realized I'd been missing: connection, understanding, and courage to open my heart again. That night, lying awake, I contemplated how life surprises you in the most unexpected ways, how a simple act of kindness, a drive home through rain, could transform ordinary moments into something deeply meaningful. And I realized I was ready to explore where this connection might lead, to embrace possibilities without fear, and to honor the trust and respect that had grown so naturally between us. Sometimes the most extraordinary experiences arrive wrapped in the most ordinary moments, if you have the courage to embrace them.